Welcome back to Klepper's Corner, Today in History. March 11th is one of those dates where history feels less like a carefully planned story and more like a chaotic group chat where emperors get murdered, revolutions begin, natural disasters reshape entire nations, and occasionally someone invents the modern news cycle just to make sure we all know about it. So today we're walking through a lineup of events that prove humanity has always been dramatic, unpredictable, and occasionally very bad at long-term planning. Segment 1, teenage emperors, political grandmothers, and the Roman Empire's worst HR decision. Let's begin in the year 222 AD, with a reminder that the Roman Empire occasionally made hiring decisions that would make modern corporate boards look cautious. On March 11th of that year, the teenage emperor Elagabalus was assassinated by the Praetorian Guard, which is Roman history's polite way of saying the security team decided the boss had to go. Elagabalus had originally been installed as emperor at age 14, thanks largely to his extremely ambitious grandmother, Julia Maesa, who basically ran one of the most successful political lobbying campaigns in ancient history. She convinced the Roman army that the boy was secretly the son of Emperor Caracalla, which was historically the Roman version of writing "trust me, bro" on your resume. Once he took power, however, Elagabalus decided Rome's traditional religious system needed a makeover. Specifically, he tried to replace the entire Roman pantheon with a Syrian sun god and made the Senate participate in unfamiliar religious rituals. If you're wondering how that played politically in conservative ancient Rome, imagine a president declaring tomorrow that Jupiter is canceled and we're all worshiping a rock. The emperor also ignored Roman social norms, married multiple times, and even wed a Vestal virgin, which was illegal under Roman law. That's like violating a religious taboo, a legal statute, and a cultural tradition all before lunch. Eventually, the Praetorian Guard mutinied. When the assassins arrived, the young emperor reportedly tried to hide in a chest, which is not the most dignified exit strategy for a ruler of the largest empire in the Western world. He and his mother were killed, their bodies dragged through the streets and dumped in the Tiber. Rome followed up with a full political memory wipe called Damnatio Memoriae, erasing his name from monuments and records, which means the Roman Senate basically invented the historical version of deleting someone from the group chat and pretending they were never invited. Segment 2, religious art, imperial politics, and the triumph of orthodoxy. 600 years later, March 11th becomes the date when an entirely different empire solved a very different problem. In 843 AD, the Byzantine Empire officially ended the iconoclast controversy and restored religious icons to churches. For over a century, Byzantine leaders had been arguing about whether religious images were sacred tools of devotion or dangerous idols. Some emperors ordered icons destroyed, leading to riots, persecution, and centuries of theological drama that makes modern internet debates look calm. The turning point came after Emperor Theophilos died, leaving his young son, Michael III, on the throne. His mother, Empress Theodora, became regent, and unlike her late husband, she was a strong supporter of religious icons. So, on March 11th, the Synod of Constantinople formally restored icon veneration. And to celebrate, Theodora staged a massive procession, carrying sacred images from the Church of Blachernae to the Hagia Sophia. Imagine a political leader solving a century-long national religious conflict with a parade of artwork through the capital city. Frankly, compared to modern political solutions, that's actually pretty efficient. The event became known as the Triumph of Orthodoxy, and Eastern Orthodox churches still commemorate it today, which means the final resolution of a brutal theological controversy ended with the ancient equivalent of saying, "Okay, everyone, we're putting the paintings back on the wall." Segment 3, star-crossed lovers and medieval mercenaries. March 11th also carries one of the most famous fictional events in Western literature, the secret wedding of Romeo and Juliet, traditionally dated to 1302 in the story's timeline. Now, technically, Romeo and Juliet are fictional characters, but the legend itself draws from older Italian tales about feuding families in Verona, which Shakespeare later adapted into the most famous teenage romance in literary history. According to the story's chronology, the two lovers meet, fall in love, and secretly marry in roughly 24 hours. Which means Romeo and Juliet invented the concept of rushing into a relationship faster than a reality dating show. Friar Lawrence agrees to perform the wedding because he hopes it will end the feud between the Montagues and Capulets. This is historically the medieval equivalent of saying, what could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, everything. Because within days, the secret marriage triggers a chain reaction of duels, banishment, poison, miscommunication, and eventually a double suicide in a crypt, which is Shakespeare's way of reminding audiences that teenage impulsiveness plus family vendettas equals tragedy. Meanwhile, in actual 14th century Italy, March 11th of 1387 witnessed the Battle of Castagnaro, where the legendary mercenary captain John Hawkwood defeated a much larger Veronese army. Hawkwood used terrain, hidden cavalry, and a surprise flanking maneuver to destroy an army nearly twice his size. At the moment of attack, he reportedly threw his commander's baton into the enemy ranks and ordered his soldiers to fight their way to retrieve it, which is either a brilliant morale tactic or the medieval equivalent of tossing your keys into a crowd and saying, well, guess we're going in. Segment 4, News, Industry, and the Birth of Modern Panic. By the early 1700s, humanity was discovering a revolutionary concept, daily news. On March 11, 1702, the first regular daily newspaper in England was published, the Daily Courant. It was founded by Elizabeth Mallet, making her the first editor of a daily newspaper in history. But because it was the 18th century, she published under the gender-neutral name E. Mallet. Her paper contained foreign news reports and advertisements, but she promised readers she would avoid editorial commentary and simply present facts. Which is fascinating because 3 centuries later, we still argue about whether that's possible. Fast forward to March 11, 1811, when economic pressure and industrialization sparked the first Luddite riots in England. Textile workers in Nottinghamshire smashed automated knitting machines they believed were destroying their livelihoods. The workers organized under the mythical name General Ned Ludd, a legendary figure who may never have existed, but served as the symbolic leader of the rebellion. The irony, of course, is that today the word Luddite describes someone who opposes technology, which means the people who smashed machines out of economic desperation have been remembered mostly as anti-tech stereotypes. And if you're watching this episode produced with modern cameras, editing software, and the internet, congratulations. You are currently benefiting from the exact technological revolution they were protesting. Segment 5, Blizzards, Pandemics, and the Collapse of Superpowers. The date March 11th has also delivered some of the most dramatic turning points of the modern world. In 1888, the Great Blizzard of 1888 began devastating the northeastern United States. Temperatures plummeted, winds reached hurricane force, and snowdrifts buried entire streets. Transportation collapsed, telegraph lines snapped, and over 400 people died. The disaster forced cities like New York and Boston to rethink infrastructure and eventually move transit systems underground, leading to the development of modern subway networks. In other words, one of America's worst storms indirectly created the subway commute, which, depending on your morning train experience, may or may not feel like an improvement. Then, on March 11, 1918, a U.S. Army cook named Albert Gitchell reported to the infirmary at Fort Riley, Kansas, with what seemed like an ordinary flu. It wasn't. That moment is widely considered the first documented case of the 1918 influenza pandemic. Within months, the virus spread around the globe, infecting roughly 1/3 of humanity and killing tens of millions. And in a grim historical twist, the virus spread largely through troop movements during World War I, which means the machinery of global warfare accidentally became the perfect distribution system for a microscopic enemy. Finally, in the late 20th century, March 11th delivered 2 political earthquakes. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became leader of the Soviet Union and launched sweeping reforms under the policies of glasnost and perestroika. His goal was to strengthen the Soviet system. Instead, those reforms helped dismantle it. 5 years later, on March 11, 1990, Lithuania declared independence from the USSR, becoming the first Soviet republic to break away. The quiet vote in Vilnius shattered the illusion of Soviet permanence and triggered a wave of independence movements across Eastern Europe. And just to prove history still knows how to deliver devastating surprises, March 11, 2011 brought the massive Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in Japan. The magnitude 9.0 quake triggered towering tsunami waves that devastated the coast and caused the Fukushima nuclear disaster. It became the costliest natural disaster in human history and reminded the world that even the most technologically advanced societies are still vulnerable to the raw power of nature. In conclusion, March 11th shows us the full range of human history. Ambitious emperors, religious conflicts, legendary romances, industrial revolutions, political collapses, pandemics, and natural disasters. It's a date that proves history is rarely calm and almost never boring. And if there's one lesson tying these events together, it's that the forces shaping the world are often far bigger than the people trying to control them. Sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's technology, and sometimes it's a wave taller than a 12-story building, reminding humanity who really runs the planet.